Hey guys, Mike here. So today, I'm here to talk to you about Motherless Brooklyn. In this review, I'll be going over a brief summary of the plot, my quick thoughts about the film, and whether or not you guys should go and see it. So I'm going to try and keep this review spoiler-free. However, if you don't know anything about the film, and you want to go in completely blind, then it's just come back to this video once you've seen the film. So with that, let's get started, shall we?
She doesn't know! She doesn't know!
What don't I know?
So Motherless Brooklyn stars Edward Norton as Lionel Esrog. You may remember him from American History X and from Fight Club. In Motherless Brooklyn, Lionel is a private detective who suffers with Tourette's. And for pretty much his whole life, his condition's been a massive problem for him. However, he manages to get where he's got because he's got a very good memory, and this definitely helps him out as a detective. However, one day, after his mentor is murdered, he must put the pieces all together and try and solve the crime. And so we have Motherless Brooklyn. Now, going into this movie, I didn't exactly have the highest hopes that I'd really enjoy it, because my main issue kind of lies with Edward Norton himself. Now, Edward Norton has made and has been a part of a lot of good movies. However, Edward Norton's an actor that I haven't really gravitated towards in the years. Because personally, I just think there's just something about him which I just don't really like. Honestly, the best representation of how I think Edward Norton is in real life is how his character is in the movie Birdman. If you've seen Birdman, you know exactly what I'm talking about. And if you haven't watched Birdman, I'd definitely recommend it because it's definitely a decent movie to watch. But if you see that movie, then that's how I think Edward Norton is in real life. But still, I went to go see the movie nonetheless. And so let's talk about Edward Norton's performance in the movie. So right out of the gate, you've got a very dicey performance when you're playing someone who has a very severe disability. And when you have characters like that, it can really go one way or the other. However, I think Edward Norton played the role really well, because not only does he give a good performance in the movie, he plays the character with such a respect and dignity as well, which can be very hard when you're playing a character with Tourette's. But Edward Norton played the Tourette's into the character really well because he didn't make it just something that the character had. He made it the essence of the character, and at the same time, he didn't just make him say random things at random intervals. He made it really play off naturally with the character. At no point did I feel like he was trying to get a cheap laugh out of anyone or make the character seem over-sympathetic. He just made a really real, really interesting character. So in summary, it's been a while since Edward Norton's played a character that I've actually genuinely liked. So as for the actual movie itself, the story is definitely interesting. It's a very good detective movie. It always keeps you guessing, it always makes you wonder what's going to happen next. And I think the pacing is definitely one of the movie's strongest suits as well. Because another thing I really appreciated about this movie, it didn't just bombard you with information about all the characters straight away. It gave you just enough information to go on, and then throughout the movie you find out who they are, as opposed to just kind of telling you everything about them at the start, and then just kind of learning nothing new about them throughout the movie. Though at the same time, I was kind of worried with the movie starting like this, because I thought they were going to give you next to no information about them at the start, then go through the movie, jump back to the start, have constant flashbacks to give you more information about the character. But instead, the story allows the characters to grow and change throughout, and they only give you little bits of information about them before the movie, like only in little intervals. So you know what, it just gave you enough information about the characters to really relate and, you know, find them interesting. And I really like the dynamic between him and his other detectives, because normally in these group settings they go one of two ways. Either they're ridiculously friendly and they have nothing bad to say about each other, or they're always at each other's throats and they just hate each other's guts. And I feel like they found a nice balance, because throughout most of the movie, they are kind of making fun of Edward Norton's character, calling him freak show, and, you know, making fun of his threats. But then for the rest of the time, you can just see that they are really good friends and they have grown up with each other, because you can tell that they just genuinely care about each other and they're just kind of messing around and having a bit of fun. And I think they all just played really well off each other. And honestly, I would have kind of liked to see a little bit more interaction with these guys together. However, the scenes we did get with them together were really well done. Though I will say something about Motherless Brooklyn, which I knew probably Edward Norton would try and fit into the movie. There are a couple of scenes where they are kind of artsy-fartsy and they just kind of seem like he's just trying to be expressive for the sake of being expressive. There's like one or two dream sequences, there's one or two drug sequences that are very psychedelic and very flashy. And while they are somewhat well executed, they just kind of felt like he's just trying to be like, oh, look at me, I'm very artsy-fartsy. And I think that if the movie itself was more like that, it would have fit in really well. But these scenes kind of don't really fit into the actual narrative itself, and they just kind of felt a bit jarring, really. Though this other thing may be a bit of a minute point, but I think it's worth mentioning anyway. There was this one transition in the movie that I thought was excellent. There's this one scene where they're driving in a car, and then the camera becomes unfocused. Then when the camera refocuses, they're in a completely different location. And it's very, very seamless. I know, minute point, but I just wanted to mention it. Though I did mention that the pacing was really good, and for the most part, it is definitely well executed. There does come a certain point in the movie where I'm just thinking like this movie is going on a bit too long and it kind of needed to wrap up, because it did kind of feel like this movie was 3 hours long, when in actual fact it's about 2 hours 20, 2 hours 25, something like that. But beyond the halfway point, this movie really did kind of slow down and it was starting to lose me a bit. It's only when they kind of start to wrap everything up and get towards the ending where it did kind of like, you know, pick up the pace again. But there was certainly a point after the half. I mean, the story itself was still definitely interesting and it was holding my attention. It just kind of felt like it was slowing down a bit too much. Overall, guys, I definitely enjoyed this movie a lot more than I thought I would. Edward Norton is really good in this movie, and he plays the character with a lot of respect. And you know what, for lack of a better word, he definitely follows the Tropic Thunder rule of never going full retard. So you know what, good job Edward Norton, you gave a good performance in this movie. The supporting cast are definitely excellent as well, with such actors like Willem Dafoe, Alec Baldwin and others. And they all really play well off each other, and they all make a great ensemble together. And as for the story itself, every little bit of information you find out just makes the movie that much more interesting and really keeps you guessing throughout. But now, as for whether or not, you guys should go and see it. Honestly, with all the good things that I've said about this movie, I don't know if myself personally I'd recommend that people should go out to see this one. I mean, as soon as it comes on Netflix or something like that, I'd say watch it then. But I don't think this is one you need to necessarily rush out to the cinema to go see. But still, if you like Edward Norton and you've been convinced by anything I've said in this review, then by all means, go watch this one in the cinema and have a good time. It's just myself personally, I don't think it's a cinema-going movie. Okay guys, that's my review of Motherless Brooklyn. If you've seen it, what did you think about it? And what's your favourite detective movie? Whatever it is, drop it in the comments below. And until next time, I've been Michael. See ya!